My name is Theresa Wilson Lester. I am 34 years old. I am the CEO and founder of Wilson Blake Logistics, a freight and distribution company that operates in 14 states, employs over 1,200 people, and last year generated revenue of over $600 million. I built it with the help of my grandmother. My grandmother's maiden name was Wilson. I named the company after her because she is the reason I am sitting here today. Without her, I would be nothing. I want you to understand that before I tell you what I did. Because what I did might sound ruthless. It might sound cold. But I need you to understand why. My grandfather, Ester's husband, died before I was born. He built Blake Logistics from a single truck and a warehouse in Newark. By the time he passed, it was a mid-sized freight company with a solid reputation and real assets. His will was specific. 60% of the company went to my grandmother, Ester Blake. 20% went to my father, Roger Blake. The remaining 20% was distributed among early investors and minor shareholders. My father had been working at the company since he was 22. He expected to inherit everything. When he found out that his mother held the majority stake, he did not speak to her for 3 months. But he needed the salary, so he came back. I tell you this because it explains who my father is. He believes that things should be given to him because he is the man. He believes that women should support men, not compete with them. He believes that a daughter's purpose is to marry well and raise children. My mother, Catherine, agrees with him. She did not want a daughter. She wanted 2 sons. When I was born, she told my grandmother that she was disappointed. My grandmother told me this story when I was 12 years old. She wanted me to understand why my mother looked at me the way she did. I grew up in a large house in Morristown, New Jersey. We were well off. My father drove a new car every 2 years. My mother had a cleaning service and a gardener and a wardrobe that filled an entire room. My brother, Andrew, had everything he wanted. Summer camps. Private tutors. A car on his 16th birthday. I had a roof over my head and clothes on my back. I was not beaten. I was not starved. I was not locked in a room. I was ignored. My parents attended Andrew's soccer games. They did not attend my piano recitals. They celebrated Andrew's report cards on the refrigerator. Mine were left on the counter until I put them away myself. When Andrew brought friends home, my mother made snacks. When I brought friends home, my mother asked why they couldn't play at someone else's house. I remember one specific afternoon. I was 14. I had just won the regional piano competition. I came home with a trophy and a ribbon and I was so proud. I walked into the kitchen and my mother was making dinner. I held up the trophy. "Mom, look. I won." She glanced at it. "That is nice, Theresa. Set the table." Andrew came home an hour later. He had scored a goal in his soccer game. My mother stopped cooking. She hugged him. She called my father at work. She told him the news. She made Andrew's favorite dessert. I set the table. I ate dinner. I went to my room and I played piano quietly because I had learned that making noise was not something I was allowed to do. I learned early that I was not wanted the way Andrew was wanted. I learned to stop asking for attention because asking only made the rejection louder. My best friend Sonia grew up watching all of this. We met in elementary school. She was the quiet girl who sat next to me in class and shared her crayons without being asked. She became my person. She was the one who held my hand after piano recitals when no one showed up. She was the one who told me I was smart when my father told me I was pretty. She was the one who said, "Theresa, your family is wrong about you," when I was 15 years old and starting to believe them. Sonia's family was not wealthy. They lived in a small apartment on the other side of town. But her parents loved her. They came to her school plays. They helped with her homework. They told her they were proud of her. I spent as much time at Sonia's house as I could. It was the only place where I saw what a family was supposed to look like. When I was 17, I told my father I wanted to go to college. He laughed. Not a cruel laugh. A dismissive one. Like I had said something naive. College, he said. Theresa, what would you do with a college degree? I want to study business, I said. Business, he repeated. He looked at my mother. Catherine shook her head. Your brother is studying business, my father said. He will take over the company one day. You should focus on finding a husband. That is the smartest investment you can make. I did not argue. I went to my room and I sat on my bed and I made a plan. My grandmother knew. She always knew. She called me that night. Theresa, she said. Your father is a fool. He was a fool when he was 20 and he is a fool now. Do not let his foolishness become your ceiling. Grandma, I don't have money for college. I know, she said. Come to dinner on Sunday. I went to dinner at my grandmother's house every Sunday. It was the one place where I felt like I belonged. She cooked pot roast and mashed potatoes and she listened to me talk about school and my friends and my plans. She never told me to lower my voice. She never told me to be less. That Sunday, my grandmother invited my parents and Andrew to dinner as well. She did not usually do this. She preferred my company alone. But she had a reason. We sat around the table. My father at the head. My mother next to Andrew. My grandmother at the other end. Me in the middle, like always. Roger, my grandmother said. Theresa needs money for college. My father put down his fork. Mother, we have discussed this. No, my grandmother said. You have discussed it. I have not. Theresa is going to college. She is smart and she is capable and she deserves the same chance you gave Andrew. Andrew is going to run the company, my father said. Theresa is going to get married. Theresa is going to do whatever she decides to do, my grandmother said. And you are going to help her. I am not paying for her to go to college so she can waste 4 years learning things she will never use. My grandmother reached into her purse. She pulled out a check and she slid it across the table to me. $250,000. My father stared at the check. My mother's mouth opened. Andrew looked at me like I had just stolen something from him. Mother, my father said. You cannot be serious. I am always serious, my grandmother said. Theresa, you take that money and you go to college and you become whatever you want to become. And if your father won't support you, then I will. I took the check. My hands were shaking. Not because of the money. Because someone had finally chosen me. My father did not speak to me for the rest of the dinner. My mother did not look at me. Andrew smirked. He always smirked when I was being scolded. It was his way of saying that he had won. I left for college that fall, in 2009. I went to Rutgers, which was close enough to home that I could visit my grandmother on weekends. I studied business administration. I took every class I could find on operations, logistics, supply chain management, and corporate finance. I did not party. I did not join a sorority. I studied. I also got a part-time job at Evans Logistics, a small freight company in Newark. I started in the warehouse. Loading trucks. Sorting packages. Sweeping floors. The owner, Evan Torres, did not know why a college girl was working in his warehouse. He asked me once. I want to learn the business from the ground up, I said. He shrugged and handed me a broom. I worked at Evans 3 days a week during the school year and full-time during the summers. I learned how freight moved. I learned how warehouses operated. I learned how to manage inventory and negotiate with carriers and deal with customers who were angry about late deliveries. I learned things that no business class could teach me. Evan took notice. After my first year, he promoted me to shift supervisor. After my second year, he made me assistant warehouse manager. He started teaching me the financial side of the business. How to read a profit and loss statement. How to negotiate contracts. How to price services. You are not like most kids, Evan said one afternoon. Most kids work here for a paycheck. You work here like you own the place. I want to understand every part of the business, I said. Why? Because one day I am going to run one. Evan nodded. He did not laugh. He did not dismiss me. He said, good. Then pay attention. My brother Andrew had already graduated from college by then. He had studied business at NYU, paid for by my father. He joined Blake Logistics straight out of school, working in sales. He was good at sales. He was charming and confident, and he knew how to talk to people. He moved up quickly. I saw Andrew once during my second year of college. I was home for the weekend visiting my grandmother. He pulled into her driveway while I was leaving. He was driving a new BMW. I was driving a used Ford Focus that I had bought with my own money. He rolled down his window. Theresa, he said. Still working in a warehouse? Still working, I said. He smiled. That smirk again. You know, Dad says you are wasting your time. Dad says a lot of things. But Dad is a loser like you, whose only claim is that he has never built anything himself. He took what Grandpa built. Andrew's smile faded. You don't know what you are talking about. The real world is not like college. You will come crawling back when you figure that out. The real world, I said. Andrew, I have been working in a warehouse since I was 18. I have been loading trucks and sorting packages and dealing with angry customers. What do you know about the real world? His smile came back. That smirk again. I know that I will be running the company one day, he said. And you will be wishing you had listened to Dad. Good luck with that, I said. Maybe Dad will still be around to do your job for you. And Mom to wipe your butt. His smile disappeared. He drove away. I stood in the driveway and I watched him go. I wished him failure. I wished him the same rejection I had felt my entire life. I wished him to know what it felt like to be nothing. I went inside and had dinner with my grandmother. She did not ask about Andrew. She knew. She always knew. Theresa, she said, as we were washing dishes. Your brother is going to regret the way he treats you. I don't care if he does, I said. I know, she said. That is what makes you different from him. He needs people to admire him. You just need to do the work. She was right. I did not need admiration. I did not need validation. I needed to build something that was mine. Every time I came home from college, Sonia and I met at a coffee shop called the Wake Up Call. It was a small place on Main Street with worn booths and coffee that was too strong. We would sit there for hours. She would tell me about her marketing classes. I would tell her about Evan's logistics and what I was learning about the business. Theresa, she said one afternoon, during my second year. You are going to run that company someday. Evans? I said. No, she said. Your own. I can see it. You talk about logistics the way my dad talks about baseball. You love it. She was right. I did love it. I loved the way freight moved. I loved the way warehouses operated. I loved the way a business worked when every part was in the right place. Sonia was the only person who saw that in me. She was the only person who did not tell me to find a husband or settle down or be less. She told me to be more. The Thanksgiving dinners during college were always at my grandmother's house. My parents came. Andrew came. Sonia came too, because my grandmother loved her and because Sonia was the only person outside our family who knew the truth. The first Thanksgiving, my father spent the entire dinner telling my grandmother that I was wasting my time in college. My mother agreed with everything he said. Andrew talked about his sales numbers and his new apartment in Manhattan. When I mentioned that I had been promoted to shift supervisor at Evans, he laughed. "Shift supervisor," he said. "That is adorable, Theresa." "It is a job," I said. "I earned it." "You earned it," he repeated, like the word amused him. My grandmother looked at Andrew. Her eyes were sharp. She did not say anything. She did not need to. The second Thanksgiving was the same. My father made comments about my career choices. My mother pretended I was not there. Andrew bragged about his new title. My grandmother served pot roast and watched her family fall apart. The third year was different. It was not Thanksgiving. It was Easter. My grandmother hosted dinner at her house. My parents came. Andrew came. Sonia was there. Dinner started well enough. My grandmother had made her pot roast. Sonia was telling a story about her job at a marketing firm. I was helping clear the plates. Then my father asked me a question. "Theresa, when are you going to stop this nonsense and come home?" "What nonsense?" I said. "This college business. This working in a warehouse. It is embarrassing. People are asking me why my daughter is loading trucks in Newark." "I'm building a career," I said. "You are wasting your youth," he said. "Andrew is running a department. You are sweeping floors." "Andrew is doing his thing," I said. "I am doing mine." "Your thing," my father said. "Your thing is going to lead nowhere. And when you are 30 and unmarried and alone, do not come crying to me." "Roger," my grandmother said. "Mother, stay out of this." "I will not stay out of this," my grandmother said. "Not in my house." "We are your family," my father said. "Theresa is throwing her life away and you are encouraging her." "I am encouraging her to be more than you are willing to let her be," my grandmother said. "And I am telling you this, Roger. Theresa deserves a family that loves her. Since you are not capable of that, you can leave. And you are not welcome back in this house until you apologize to her." My father stared at my grandmother. His face was red. He stood up. "That is enough. Catherine, Andrew, we are leaving." My mother stood up. Andrew stood up. He had that smirk on his face again. "You are choosing her over us," my father said to my grandmother. "I am choosing what is right," my grandmother said. My father opened his mouth. He closed it. He turned and walked out. My mother followed. Andrew followed. The door closed. Sonia stood up. Her face was red. Not from crying. From anger. "Theresa," she said. "Your father is a terrible person." "I know," I said. "Your mother is worse." "I know," she said. "And Andrew," she said. "That smirk. I want to slap it off his face." "Sonia," my grandmother said. "Sorry, Mrs. Blake. But someone needs to say it." "I just did," my grandmother said. "That is why they left." Sonia looked at me. "Are you okay?" I was standing in my grandmother's kitchen holding a plate of leftover pot roast and I felt something I had never felt before. "I am okay," I said. "I feel free." My grandmother looked at me. "Theresa," she said. "You are going to be fine." "I know," I said. "Good," she said. "Now help me with the dishes." After that Easter dinner in 2012, my parents did not speak to me. Not a phone call. Not an email. Not a birthday card. Nothing. For 12 years. I finished college. I finished my MBA by 2013. My grandmother came to both graduations. She sat in the front row and she clapped louder than anyone else in the auditorium. After the MBA ceremony, she handed me another check. $300,000. Grandma, I said. This is too much. It is not enough, she said. You are going to build something, Theresa. I can feel it. Take this money and build something that makes you proud. I took the money and I started Wilson Logistics in 2015. I was 23 years old. I remember the day I signed the lease on my first office. It was a small room in a building in Newark. The carpet was stained. The walls were yellow. The window looked out onto a parking lot. But it was mine. I stood in that empty room and I called my grandmother. Grandma, I have an office. Good, she said. Now fill it with clients. I will, I said. I know you will, she said. Now go to work. I went to work. I worked harder than I had ever worked in my life. I worked because I had something to prove. I worked because I had a grandmother who believed in me. I worked because I had spent my entire life being told that I was not enough and I was determined to show the world that I was. The first year was brutal. I had an MBA and a warehouse job on my resume and no clients and no reputation and no network. I started with a single truck and a small office in Newark. I did everything myself. I drove the truck. I made the sales calls. I did the invoicing. I swept the floors. I made mistakes. I underbid a contract and lost money for 3 months straight. I had to dip into my grandmother's money just to make payroll. I hired a driver who showed up drunk on his first day and I had to fire him on the spot. I lost a major client because I could not deliver on time and they told me I was unreliable. I called my grandmother that night. I was sitting on the floor of my office surrounded by invoices and I was crying. Grandma, I made a mistake. I lost the Henderson account. I know, she said. I saw the review on their website. They said I was unreliable. Are you? No. The truck broke down. It was a mechanical failure. Then fix the truck and call them back and offer them a discount on their next shipment. They will not give me another chance. Call them anyway, she said. The worst they can say is no. I called them. They said no. I called them again a month later. They said no again. I called them a third time. The owner said, you are either very persistent or very desperate. Both, I said. He gave me the account. I did not lose it again. About 5 months in, Sonia left her marketing job and joined Wilson Logistics as my first employee. She sat across from me in my tiny office and she handled the phones and the invoices and the customers who called to complain. She was not trained in logistics. She did not know the difference between a bill of lading and a freight manifest. But she learned. She learned because she was smart and because she cared. You know, she said one afternoon, I have been watching your parents ignore you for 20 years. Let me help you build something they cannot ignore. She did. Every Friday, Sonia and I went to the wake-up call for coffee. It was our tradition. We would sit in the same booth we had sat in since college and we would talk about the business and our lives and everything in between. It was at the wake-up call that I met Brian Lester. He was sitting at the counter one Friday morning. He was reading a newspaper and drinking black coffee. He was in his mid-30s, with dark hair and glasses and a quiet intensity about him. Sonia noticed me looking at him. Theresa, she said. Are you staring? No, I said. You are staring, she said. Go talk to him. I went up to him. Hi, I said. I am Theresa. He looked up from his newspaper. He smiled. Brian, he said. I know who you are. You do? You built Wilson Logistics from nothing, he said. I work in local politics. I follow these things. Can I buy you a coffee? He asked. You can, I said. We started dating. It was not easy. I was building a company. He was on the city council. We were both busy. But we made it work. We met at the wake-up call every Saturday morning. We talked about our days and our frustrations and our dreams. The second year, 2016, was better. I landed a contract with a regional grocery chain. It was small, but it was consistent. I used the revenue to buy a second truck. Then a third. I hired a dispatcher. Then a second dispatcher. Then an office manager. Brian was there through all of it. He understood the long hours. He understood the stress. He did not complain when I canceled dinner plans because a shipment was late. He did not complain when I fell asleep on the phone because I had been up since 4 in the morning. Theresa, he said one Saturday at the wake-up call. You are burning yourself out. I am building something, I said. I know, he said. But you need to eat. You need to sleep. You need to take care of yourself. I will, I said. When the company is stable. The company will never be stable if you are not, he said. He was right. I started eating better. I started sleeping more. I started taking Sundays off to spend with him and my grandmother. Theresa, Sonia said one Friday. You are building something real. I know, I said. Your parents are going to regret ignoring you. I know, I said. Good, she said. Now drink your coffee. We have a meeting at 2. I worked hard. Every day. Every night. 2017 was the year we hit 10 trucks. 2018 we opened a small warehouse. 2019 we landed our first major retail contract. I built the company one client at a time. One truck at a time. One contract at a time. Brian proposed in 2019. We were at the wake-up call, our booth, our coffee. He did not get down on one knee. He did not make a speech. He just reached into his pocket and put a ring on the table. Theresa, he said. Will you marry me? I looked at the ring. I looked at him. I said yes. We did not set a date. We were both too busy. But the ring was on my finger and that was enough. By 2020, Wilson Logistics had 40 trucks and a warehouse in Elizabeth. We were moving freight for manufacturers and retailers across the tri-state area. I was working 16-hour days and sleeping in my office and eating takeout on my desk. I loved every minute of it. My grandmother called me every Sunday. She was 73 years old by then, still sharp, still fierce. She asked me about the business. She asked me about my employees. She asked me if I was eating properly. Yes, Grandma, I said. You are lying, she said. I can hear it in your voice. Eat something. I ate. I ate because she told me to. I ate because she is the only person in my family who cares whether I do. During those years, I watched my family's company from a distance. Blake Logistics was a public company. Their financials were available. Their news was public. Andrew had been promoted steadily. Sales manager. Regional director. Vice president of operations. Each promotion came with a raise and a title and no real accountability. My father was still running the company, but he was slowing down. He was in his mid-50s and the business was changing and he was not keeping up. The freight industry was evolving. Technology was transforming logistics. Customers wanted real-time tracking and automated systems and data analytics. Blake Logistics was still running on spreadsheets and phone calls. I was building a company that competed directly with my family's business. I would be lying if I said revenge was not part of it. I did it because logistics is what I knew. It is what I learned at Evans. It is what I studied in school. It is what I was good at. But I also did it because I wanted to prove them wrong. But I would be lying if I said there was no satisfaction in it. When I was 29, in 2021, I called my grandmother. We talked about the business, like we always did. Then she said something that surprised me. Theresa, I want to sell you my shares. What? My shares in Blake Logistics. 60%. I want to sell them to you. Grandma, why? Because I am 74 years old and I do not want to die holding shares in a company that my son is running into the ground. And because you are the only person in this family who deserves them. Grandma, I cannot afford 60% of Blake Logistics. Yes, you can, she said. I have had the company valued. The shares are worth $15 million. I thought about it for a week. I talked to Sonia. I talked to Evan. I talked to Brian. Brian and I were at the wake-up call that Saturday. I told him about the shares. About my grandmother's offer. About the $18 million. Are you sure? He asked. I am sure, I said. This is a lot of money, he said. This is your future. I know, I said. But Grandma gave me my future when she handed me that first check. I owe her this. Brian looked at me for a long time. Then he nodded. Then do it, he said. And do not look back. Then I called her back. Grandma, I will pay you $18 million. Theresa, that is above market value. I know, I said. You gave me $250,000 when I was 17. You gave me $300,000 when I graduated. You believed in me when no one else did. $18 million is the least I can do. Good, she said. I will have my lawyer draw up the papers. I bought my grandmother's shares for $18 million. I paid cash. The money came from the profits I had reinvested in Wilson Logistics over the years and a loan I secured from a bank that believed in my track record. My grandmother was set for the rest of her life. She stayed in her house in Morristown, the same house where she had hosted those Sunday dinners. She called me every weekend from her kitchen phone. Theresa, she said. I am proud of you. I know, Grandma, I said. Good, she said. Now tell me about the business. After I acquired my grandmother's shares, I hired Janet Reyes as my lawyer. She was in her mid-50s. She had been practicing corporate law for 30 years. She was known as a bulldog. She did not take nonsense from anyone. I hired her because I needed someone who would not flinch. Janet's reputation was well earned. She had once represented a client against a Fortune 500 company and won. She had deposed CEOs who thought they were untouchable. She had a wall of legal awards in her office and a collection of letters from former clients thanking her for saving their businesses. Our first meeting was in her office in downtown Manhattan. She sat across from me at her desk and she read my file for 20 minutes without saying a word. When she finished, she looked at me. Theresa, she said. You have been buying shares in a company your family owns. You have been doing this through holding companies and intermediaries. You have been doing this for 5 years. Why? Because I want to own the company, I said. Why? Because I built a better company and I want to prove that I can run theirs too. That is not a legal reason, she said. That is a personal reason. I need a legal reason. The company is declining. The current management is incompetent. The shareholders are losing value. I can turn it around. Better, she said. Now, do you understand what you are about to do? You are about to walk into a boardroom and fire your brother. You are about to strip your father of his power. You are about to take over a company that has been in your family for 3 generations. Are you prepared for the consequences? Yes, I said. Your family will never speak to you again. They have not spoken to me in 12 years, I said. I have nothing to lose. Janet nodded. She closed the file. Good, she said. Then let us begin. Janet reviewed all my documents. She checked every transaction. She made sure everything was legal and compliant and airtight. Theresa, she said one afternoon. You have a solid case. You own the majority of this company. When you are ready to make your move, I will be ready. Thank you, Janet. Do not thank me yet, she said. Thank me after we win. With Janet's guidance, I started buying out the minor shareholders and investors. There were 7 of them. Some had held shares for decades. Some had inherited them. Most were happy to sell. Blake Logistics had been declining for years. The stock price was flat. The dividends were shrinking. I bought them one by one. I paid fair market value for each transaction. I used my own capital and financing from investors who believed in my vision. One shareholder, a retired executive named Walter, invited me to his home to discuss the sale. He poured me coffee and he looked at me for a long time. You are Roger's daughter, he said. Yes. The one he never talks about. That is the one. Walter nodded. I have been watching your company, Theresa. Wilson Logistics. You are doing good work. Thank you. Your father is a fool, he said. He always has been. I have been telling the board for years that they needed to modernize. They did not listen. Andrew does not listen either. I listen, I said. I know, he said. That is why I am selling to you. Over the next 5 years, by early 2026, I accumulated 78% of Blake Logistics. My father still held his 20%. He was a minority shareholder with no real power. But he did not know that yet. Andrew was the CEO by then. My father had retired 2 years earlier, handing the company to his golden child. Andrew celebrated with a party at the office. I saw the photos on social media. My parents were there. My mother was smiling. My father was shaking Andrew's hand. I was not invited. Andrew's tenure as CEO was a disaster. He had no vision. He had no strategy. He had the same skills he had always had, charm and confidence, and those skills were not enough to run a logistics company in a rapidly changing industry. Revenue declined. Clients left. The best employees quit. Andrew blamed the economy and the competition and the market. He blamed everything except himself. Then, one Tuesday morning, Janet called me. Theresa, Andrew has called a board meeting for Friday. What is the agenda? The future of the company. He is panicking. The board is unhappy. He needs to show them a plan. Does he know I own 78%? I do not think so, Janet said. Your purchases were through holding companies. The board knows there is a new majority shareholder, but I do not think Andrew has connected the dots. Good, I said. I will be there. Friday came. I drove to the Blake Logistics headquarters in Newark. I had not been inside that building in over a decade. The lobby looked the same. The same faded carpet. The same old logo on the wall. The same receptionist, though she was older now and did not recognize me. Janet met me in the lobby. She was wearing a dark suit and carrying a briefcase, and she looked like she was ready for a fight. Are you ready? She asked. I have been ready for 12 years, I said. We took the elevator to the 4th floor. The boardroom was at the end of the hall. I could hear voices inside. My father's voice. Andrew's voice. The voices of board members I had never met. I paused outside the door. I looked at Janet. She nodded. I opened the door. The boardroom was large and old-fashioned. A long mahogany table. 9 board members seated around it. Andrew at the head. My father to his right. James Thornton, the corporate lawyer, to his left. Martin Walsh, the CFO, next to James. The room went quiet when I walked in. 12 faces turned toward me. Andrew was mid-sentence, his hand raised in some gesture about quarterly projections. His hand froze in the air. Theresa? He said. Hello, Andrew, I said. What are you doing here? He lowered his hand. His face was confused. Then it shifted. Recognition. Then something harder. This is a closed meeting. Shareholders and board members only. I know, I said. I walked to the far end of the table. I pulled out a chair and I sat down. Janet sat next to me. She placed her briefcase on the table and folded her hands. Theresa, you need to leave, my father said. He was staring at me like I was a ghost. This is a corporate meeting. You have no business here. I have every business here, I said. Security, Andrew said, reaching for the phone on the table. We have an intruder in the boardroom. Go ahead, I said. Call them. But before you do, you might want to hear what my lawyer has to say. Andrew paused. His hand hovered over the phone. He looked at my father. My father looked at James Thornton. James Thornton looked at me. Who is your lawyer? James asked. Janet stood up. She opened her briefcase. She pulled out a stack of documents and placed them on the table. She did it slowly. Deliberately. Like she was laying cards on a table. My name is Janet Reyes. I represent Theresa Blake. As of today, my client holds 78% of Blake Logistics through a series of acquisitions over the past 5 years. She is the majority shareholder of this company. The room went silent. Andrew stared at the documents. His face was pale. He looked at my father. My father looked at James Thornton. James Thornton looked at the documents and then at Janet. That is impossible, Andrew said. I would have known. The board would have known. The acquisitions were made through holding companies, Janet said. Each transaction was documented and compliant with all applicable regulations. The board was notified of each purchase through the proper channels. I never saw any notifications, Andrew said. That is because you do not read your mail, Janet said. A few board members shifted in their seats. One of them, a woman in her 50s, looked down at the table. I would like to verify these documents, James said. Of course, Janet said. Take your time. James Thornton spent 20 minutes reviewing the papers. The board members whispered among themselves. Andrew sat at the head of the table, silent. My father had not moved. He was staring at the documents like they were a bomb. Finally, James Thornton looked up. The documents appear to be in order, he said. Ms. Blake is the majority shareholder. Andrew stood up. His chair scraped against the floor. This is ridiculous, he said. You cannot just walk in here and take over a company. This is my family's company. My grandfather built it. My father ran it. I have been running it for 3 years. And in 3 years, you have lost 40% of your clients, I said. 20% of your revenue. Your best employees have quit. Your technology is outdated. Your customers are leaving. You have no strategy. You have no vision. You don't know what you are talking about, Andrew said. You have been gone for 12 years. You don't know what it takes to run this company. I know exactly what it takes, I said. I built Wilson Logistics from nothing. I have 1,200 employees. I generate $420 million in revenue. I know this industry better than you ever will. Wilson Logistics, Andrew said. He laughed. It was a bitter laugh. You built a company to compete with us. You have been planning this the whole time. I built a company because logistics is what I know, I said. It is what I learned at Evans. It is what I studied in school. It is what I am good at. And yes, I built it to compete with you. Because no one else was going to give me a chance. So I built my own. You are just jealous, Andrew said. You have always been jealous. Dad gave me the company and you could not stand it. Dad could not give you the company, I said. He only owned 20%. Grandma owned 60%. And she sold it to me. The only thing Dad gave you was a title. Not the company. Not the power. Just a title. That is not true, Andrew said. It is in the documents, I said. James just verified them. Dad had no authority to give you control. He gave you a corner office and a business card. That is all. Even so, Andrew said, I have been running this company for 3 years. And in 3 years, you have lost the confidence of your clients, your employees, and your board, I said. That is why we are here today. And Grandma? Andrew said. You turned her against us too. Grandma came to me, I said. She called me and offered to sell me her shares. 60%. She chose me over you. Over Dad. Over everyone. She saw what you were doing to this company and she decided that it belonged in the hands of someone who would take care of it. My father looked up at that. His face was pale. He stared at me. Mother sold you her shares? He said. She did, I said. For $18 million. Above market value. Because she believed in me. Because she knew I would not run it into the ground like you and Andrew have. My father closed his eyes. He opened them. He looked at me. He looked at Andrew. He looked at the documents on the table. James, my father said. His voice was quiet. Is this legal? James Thornton nodded. It is legal, Roger. She owns the company. My father looked at me. Theresa, he said. Yes? You have your grandmother's stubbornness. I know, I said. It is the best thing she ever gave me. Andrew was still standing. His hands were shaking. He looked at the board members. He looked at me. He looked at Janet. You cannot fire me, he said. I am the CEO. I was appointed by the board. I can fire you, I said. As majority shareholder, I have the authority to remove the CEO. The board can vote to confirm, but the outcome is the same. I own 78%. You would not dare. Andrew, I said. You are fired as CEO of Blake Logistics, effective immediately. You cannot do this, he said. This is my company. My family's company. It was your company, I said. Now it is mine. I looked around the room. I am calling for a vote. All in favor of removing Andrew Blake as CEO, raise your hand. One by one, the board members raised their hands. 7 in favor. 2 abstaining. Andrew stood there. His mouth was open. He looked at my father. My father did not speak. He was staring at the table. Andrew, I said. You need to leave the building. This is not over, he said. I will fight this. I will take you to court. You can try, I said. But you will lose. The documents are airtight. The transactions are legal. The votes are recorded. You have no case. Andrew picked up his jacket. He put it on slowly. He buttoned it. He looked at me. You planned this, he said. I did, I said. How long? Since Grandma called me and told me you were destroying the company. He stood there for a moment. I could see the years of entitlement and privilege and parental favoritism crumbling behind his eyes. He was realizing, for the first time in his life, that he had not earned anything. Everything he had been given. Everything he had been handed. Everything he had been told he deserved. None of it was his because he had worked for it. It was his because he was the son. I had worked for everything. Every client. Every truck. Every dollar. Every percentage point of ownership. I had worked for it while my parents told me I was wasting my time. You could have been something, Andrew said. If you had just accepted your place. My place, I repeated. Andrew, my place is at the head of this table. It always has been. You just did not see it. You were too busy riding Dad's coattails and pretending you earned something. Everything I have was given to me by this family, he said. Everything you have was given to you because you were the son, I said. Everything I have was built by me. Every truck. Every client. Every dollar. You were handed a company. I built one. That is the difference between us. And that is why you are leaving and I am staying. He turned and walked out. The door closed behind him. The room was quiet. The board members looked at each other. My father was still staring at the table. I stood up. I have one more announcement, I said. Blake Logistics will be merging with Wilson Logistics. The combined company will be renamed Wilson Blake Logistics. To honor both my grandparents. My grandfather who built this company from a single truck. And my grandmother who made sure it survived. The board members looked at each other. Margaret nodded. I am also removing the following board members. I read 6 names from a list Janet had prepared. Your service is appreciated, but I will be appointing new members who understand the direction this company needs to go. The 6 board members stood up. Some looked angry. Some looked relieved. One of them, an older man who had been on the board for 20 years, shook my hand on the way out. Good luck, he said. This company needs it. Thank you, I said. 3 board members remained. They were the ones who had been critical of Andrew's leadership. They stayed. They voted to appoint me as the new CEO. One of them, a woman named Margaret who had been on the board for 8 years, shook my hand. I have been watching your company for years, she said. I told the other board members that we should be doing what you are doing. They did not listen. Thank you, I said. Your grandmother is going to love this, she said. She does, I said. My father was the last to leave the boardroom. He stood up slowly. He buttoned his jacket. He looked at me. Theresa, he said. Yes? I did not think you had it in you. You were wrong, I said. He opened his mouth. He closed it. He turned and walked out. Janet and I sat alone in the boardroom. How do you feel? She asked. Good, I said. I feel good. Good, she said. Now we have work to do. And we did. I spent the next 6 months restructuring Blake Logistics. I brought in a new management team. I upgraded the technology. I renegotiated contracts with clients who had been considering leaving. I hired people who understood the modern logistics industry. The first thing I did was meet with every department head. I sat in their offices and I listened. I asked them what was working and what was not. I asked them what they needed and what they were not getting. I asked them why they had stayed when so many others had left. Most of them said the same thing. They loved the company. They believed in what it could be. But they felt like no one was listening to them. I listened. I made changes. I replaced the outdated software systems that Andrew had refused to upgrade. I invested in new trucks and new equipment. I created a customer service department that actually answered the phone. I also had to make difficult decisions. I laid off people who were not performing. I closed divisions that were losing money. I sold assets that were not contributing to the bottom line. Then the auditors found something I did not expect. Andrew had been stealing from the company. Not small amounts. Over 3 years, he had diverted over $2 million into shell companies and personal accounts. Fake invoices. Inflated expenses. Consulting fees to companies that did not exist. Janet called me when she found out. "Theresa," she said. "We have a problem." "What kind of problem?" Andrew was embezzling. "The records are clear. He stole over $2 million from Blake Logistics." I sat in my office and I stared at the wall. I had fired my brother. I had taken his company. I had humiliated him in front of the board. But I had not expected this. "What do we do?" I asked. "We report it," Janet said. "If we do not report it, we are complicit. The board has a fiduciary duty. The shareholders have a right to know." "Report it," I said. The authorities investigated. The evidence was overwhelming. Andrew was arrested at his apartment in Manhattan. He was wearing a suit when they came for him. He looked confused. He looked scared. The trial lasted 3 weeks. The prosecution presented documents, bank records, and testimony from employees who had been forced to process fake invoices. Andrew's lawyer tried to argue that the expenses were legitimate. The jury did not believe him. Andrew was found guilty of embezzlement, fraud, and money laundering. The judge sentenced him to 7 years in federal prison. My father was in the courtroom when the verdict was read. He did not speak. He did not look at Andrew. He stood up and he walked out. My mother cried. She looked at me across the courtroom. Her eyes were full of hatred. I did not look away. It was not easy. But I kept going. I kept going because I had spent my entire life being told that I was not good enough. I kept going because every time I faced a challenge, I heard my grandmother's voice in my head saying, "Theresa, you are going to be fine." I called Sonia one night during that period. I was sitting in my office at Blake Logistics, looking at spreadsheets that showed declining revenue and rising costs. "The marketing department is a mess," I said. "The brand is outdated. The customers do not trust us anymore. I need help." "I will be there Monday morning," Sonia said. "Send me everything you have. Financials, client lists, brand audits, all of it. I will start working on a plan this weekend." "Thank you," I said. "Do not thank me yet," she said. "Thank me after we fix it." I laughed. That is exactly what my grandmother would say. Brian helped me through the restructuring. We still met at the wake-up call every Saturday morning. He listened to me talk about the embezzlement and the stress of running 2 companies. "Theresa," he said one Saturday, "you are carrying a lot of anger." "I have earned it," I said. "You have," he said. "But anger is like a fire. It can keep you warm. It can light your way. But if you are not careful, it will burn everything down. Including you." "I am fine," I said. "You are," he said. "But you could be better. You could be happy. Not just successful. Happy." He was right. I was successful. I was powerful. I was respected. But I was not happy. I was still carrying the anger from 34 years of being ignored and dismissed and told I was not enough. Brian helped me let go of some of that anger. Not all of it. But enough. Enough to see that I had built something real. Enough to see that I had people who loved me. Enough to see that I did not need to prove anything to anyone anymore. Revenue stabilized. Then it grew. The restructuring took 6 months. When it was done, I drove to Morristown to see my grandmother. My grandmother is 79 years old now. She lives in her house in Morristown, the same house where she hosted those Sunday dinners. She still makes pot roast. She still calls me every weekend. I visit her every Sunday. I sit at the same table where she handed me that first check. She asks me about the business. She asks me about Sonia. She asks me if I am happy. I am, Grandma, I said last Sunday. Good, she said. That is all I ever wanted for you. She told me stories about her husband. About how he had built Blake Logistics from nothing. About how he had worked 18-hour days and come home with grease under his fingernails and a smile on his face. About how he had believed that the company should go to the person who would take care of it best. Your father was never that person, she said. He wanted the title. He wanted the respect. He did not want the work. Andrew is the same, I said. I know, she said. That is why I gave the shares to you. Grandma, you gave me everything. The first check. The second check. The shares. You gave me my life. No, she said. I gave you a chance. You built the life yourself. She smiled at me. The same smile she had when she handed me that check at 17. The same smile she had when she sat in the front row at my graduation. The same smile she had when I told her I was buying her shares. When I started my company, I named it Wilson Logistics, after her maiden name. Now it is Wilson Blake Logistics. Her name is still there. Brian and I got married in 2026, 11 years after we met. It was a small ceremony at my grandmother's house in Morristown. The same house where she had handed me that first check. The same house where she had kicked my parents out. The same house where I had felt free for the first time. The backyard was decorated with white lights and wildflowers. There were 50 chairs arranged in rows. Our friends. Our colleagues. Brian's family. My grandmother sat in the front row, wearing a blue dress and a corsage. She was 80 years old and she was crying before I even walked down the aisle. Sonia was my maid of honor. She wore a dark green dress and she held my bouquet while I said my vows. She was crying too. She had been my best friend since elementary school. She had held my hand after piano recitals when no one showed up. She had told me I was smart when my father told me I was pretty. She had said, Theresa, your family is wrong about you, when I was 15 years old and starting to believe them. Brian stood at the altar in a dark suit and glasses. He was not nervous. He was calm. He was always calm. He was the anchor that kept me grounded when the world was spinning. I walked down the aisle alone. I did not have a father to give me away. I did not have a mother to walk beside me. I walked alone, and I was okay with that. The ceremony was short. The officiant spoke about love and commitment and building a life together. Brian and I exchanged rings. We said our vows. We kissed. When we turned to face the crowd, my grandmother stood up. She was still crying. She clapped louder than anyone else in the backyard. Theresa, she said, after the ceremony. I am so happy for you. Thank you, Grandma, I said. He is a good man, she said. He sees you. The real you. Not the CEO. Not the businesswoman. You. I know, I said. Good, she said. Now go be happy. I became Theresa Wilson Lester. I dropped Blake. Blake was my father's name. Wilson was my grandmother's name. Lester was Brian's name. I chose the names that mattered. We spent our honeymoon in Italy. 2 weeks of eating pasta and drinking wine and not talking about the business. It was the first real vacation I had taken in 11 years. Brian made me leave my phone in the hotel room. He made me sleep in. He made me relax. When we came back, life settled into a new rhythm. Brian and I bought a house in Morristown, close to my grandmother. I continued running Wilson Blake Logistics. He continued on the city council. We had dinner together every night. We had coffee together every morning. We had a life together. My father remained a shareholder after I took over Blake Logistics. He held his 20% and he received his dividends and he attended the annual shareholder meetings. He was not allowed on the board. He was not allowed in the executive offices. He was a shareholder, nothing more. He did not speak to me at the first shareholder meeting. He sat in the back of the room and he voted his shares and he left. At the second meeting, he said hello. At the third, he asked me how the business was doing. I told him. He is a shareholder. He has the right to know. My mother never spoke to me again. She made her choice and I made peace with it. Sonia is still my best friend. She runs the marketing department at Wilson Blake Logistics. She is the reason we were able to rebuild the brand so quickly. I want you to understand something. I did not do this only for revenge. I did this because my grandmother believed in me when no one else did. I did this because she gave me the chance that my parents refused to give me. I did this because I was good at it and I loved it and I wanted to build something that mattered. But I would be lying if I said revenge was not part of it. I watched my parents give everything to my brother. I watched them hand him a company he did not earn. I watched them ignore me for 34 years. So yes, I wanted to prove them wrong. I wanted to show them what they had thrown away. And I wanted to get back at Andrew. The fact that I ended up owning the company my brother was running is the natural consequence of a system that rewards competence and punishes entitlement. My brother was handed a title and a corner office. I bought the company because I was better at running it. Call it revenge. Call it business. I call it justice. I think about my grandmother every day. I think about her when I walk into the Wilson Blake Logistics headquarters. I think about her when I sit in the boardroom. I think about her when I make decisions that affect 1,200 employees and their families. She gave me the most valuable thing anyone can give another person. She gave me belief. She believed in me when my own parents did not. She believed in me when I did not believe in myself. She believed in me when the world told me that I was not enough. I think about what she said to me on her porch in Morristown, just last month. We were watching the sunset. The sky was orange and pink and the neighborhood was quiet. Theresa, she said. Do you know why I gave you that first check? Because you believed in me, I said. No, she said. Because I saw myself in you. I was ignored too. My father told me that women should not work. My husband told me that women should not run a business. I spent my entire life being told that I was less. And I spent my entire life proving them wrong. You never told me that, I said. I did not need to, she said. You figured it out on your own. That is what makes you special, Theresa. You do not need anyone to tell you who you are. You already know. She was right. I already know. I am Theresa Wilson Lester. I am the CEO and founder of Wilson Blake Logistics. I am the granddaughter of Ester Wilson Blake. I am the wife of Brian Lester. I am the woman who was ignored and who made herself impossible to ignore. I am 34 years old. I employ over 1,200 people. I generate revenue of over $600 million a year. I built it with her help. With a little help from a woman named Ester Wilson Blake, who believed that her granddaughter deserved a chance. Please like and subscribe for more stories about family, resilience, and building your own future.